While we all know the importance of the brain, few of us actually understand it. In fact, few of us would actually be able to name the different structures of the brain. These main structures include the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the forebrain. All of these parts have plasticity and the ability to change their experience. In this presentation, we will attempt to help you understand these parts of the brain and what they control. The hindbrain is the back part of the brain. It includes the cerebellum and two structures found in the lower part of the brainstem, the medulla and the pons. These parts control most of the functions that are critical to life that happen unconsciously. It is also connected to the spinal cord through the brainstem. The brainstem connects to the brain through the spinal cord. The spinal cord is fragile and damage to it can be catastrophic. The brainstem also includes the reticular formation, controlling how we respond to stimuli. These reticles control our focus, blocking out unimportant stimuli and making the most important priorities. The medulla controls the body's unconscious but vital functions. Some of these include breathing, circulating blood, maintaining muscle tone, and regular reflexes. This structure of the brainstem functions by itself. It also contains cranial nerves, which mediate sensory and motor functions. The pons, or literally bridge, connects the neurons of the brainstem to the cerebellum. It also relays messages between the cerebellum and cerebrum. The pons contain the clusters of cell bodies involved in sleep and arousal. The cerebellum makes up 25% of the brain, coordinating the body's movement and physical balance. It organizes the sensory information that guides the movement. This structure is also responsible for the control of fine motor skills. Over the hundreds of millions of years of evolving, while the cerebrum grew, the cerebellum accommodated it by increasing neuronal density. It is also one of the first structures depressed by alcohol.
So I'm going to talk about the midbrain, and this is just a close-up of it, and you can go to the next slide. So the midbrain, or the mesencephalon, is a segment of the brainstem that lies between the hindbrain, the forebrain, and the hindbrain. It's the smallest region of the brain. It has two parts. It has the tectum, which is the upper portion, and the tegmentum, which is the bottom portion. It also has many important functions that I will discuss later. So the internal midbrain structure. The midbrain is right here, and if you slice it in half, it would reveal two parts, the posterior part and an anterior part. In the posterior part, there's the inferior colliculus, the periaqueductal gray, trochlear nucleus, substantia nigra, cerebral peduncle, medial longitudinal fasciculus, and the anterior part has the superior colliculus, cerebral aqueduct, periaqueductal gray, ocular motor nucleus, red nucleus, ocular motor nerve, and the substantia nigra. So, in the internal midbrain, the two most important structures are the substantia nigra and the red nucleus. In the substantia nigra, it's neurons that contain dopamine that contribute to initiating voluntary movements. And what it does is it translates thoughts like, I want ice cream, to actually getting up, going to your freezer, and then getting ice cream. And the degeneration of these neurons in the substantia nigra are associated with Parkinson's disease. And the red nucleus, the red nucleus is a pinkish red nucleus that controls learned movements. And an example of a learned movement would be learning a dance routine, and the coordination and timing of your muscles are too much for your conscious to control, so it's controlled by the red nucleus. In the external midbrain structure, the upper portion is the corpora quadrigemina, and it's small rounded eminences present on the upper surface of the midbrain. It also has the cerebral peduncle, which is a bundle of axons traveling from the cerebral cortex, from the brain to the body and vice versa. And axons carry messages from the brain to the body. They're also important for transmitting information to different parts of the midbrain, and it's important for voluntary motor functions. So the midbrain has a lot of important functions. The first is hearing, which is controlled by, or believed to be controlled by, the inferior colliculus. The next is eye movement. The ocular motor and trochlear nuclei and the medial longitudinal fasciculus control following objects. And the last is body movement, which is learned movements are controlled by the right nucleus.
Alright, my part of the brain was the forebrain, and as is on the board, it's the largest structure of the brain with various functions. The four main parts of the forebrain are the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the limbic system, and the cerebrum. The thalamus is all sensory information except for smell, and it has to pass through the cerebral cortex to get to the thalamus. The hypothalamus is the base of the forebrain and controls the four F's of the body: flight, fight, feed, and mate. And it is the link between the brain and the endocrine system, and then the limbic system and the cerebrum I'll explain later. This is just a picture of the forebrain so that you can see where all the structures are. Okay, the limbic system is located along the border of the cerebral cortex and the subcortical. It contains the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, and the amygdala. It regulates emotion, memory, and motivation. And factual information is all controlled by the hypothalamus. And the amygdala doesn't have much research because it's not a high topic, but it is said to control fear and pleasure centers, which pleasure centers involve a bundle of axons that are rich in releasing dopamine neurons. The cerebrum is regulated by learning, remembering, and thinking, and it has the cortex, the cerebral cortex, which is very large in surface area, covering the whole base of the cerebrum. And it is split into two hemispheres, or halves, which are connected by the corpus callosum, and it's split by different brain tissues. It has four lobes, which are frontal, occipital, parental, and temporal. The frontal controls the biggest muscle movements that your body has, the occipital controls visual signals, and the parental controls touch sensory. The temporal is audio. And if injuries occur, it's mainly to the frontal lobe, which can end up having issues in problem solving, judgment, organization, and reasoning.
I had brain plasticity. Brain plasticity is the ability for brain cells to change through new experiences. Changing nerve cells, is learning and sensing, occurs mostly dramatically at the beginning of your life, in childhood and infancy, but with the right conditions, with doing different things like keeping up your health and exercising, it can also happen in old age. Plasticity can be associated with memory, addiction, damage, and recovery, and it's also very important in understanding behavior and creating treatments. Neurons are neural connections that can be forged and refined or weakened and severed. Neurons consist of constantly create new pathways in response to learning. The structure of cells often relate to motor skills, and they often correspond to their functions. Dendrites of cells are like tree branches and leaves. 95% of the cell's synapses are on its dendrites, and increases and decreases in dendrites often reflect changes in organization. Mechanisms like axonal sprouting, where undamaged axons grow, can often reconnect where things were injured. Undamaged axons can sprout nerve endings to form others and new pathways. Other factors that can affect neurons are things like drugs, experience, hormones, growth, diet, and stress. This is a picture of a dendrite and some axons. The various parts, here's the conclusion that I wrote. The various parts of the brain are vital to functioning. They are involved in a wide variety of instances, like the control of muscles to memory. Their importance in complex structures are truly amazing. Whether it be the hindbrain, the midbrain, or the brain's ability to change throughout their life, everyone owes it to the structure of the brain for their everyday actions. Thank you. And now we're going to perform an interactive experience using the forebrain.
Okay, so we were going to do an experiment or a test with the forebrain and the four lobes, the visual and the audio, but to save time, we're just going to explain it to you guys now. So we are going to have 3 participants in each group, and they were either going to look at an object list or they were going to listen to us repeat an object list. And it exercises how the 2 lobes work. It also tests your ability to remember, which is a significant regulation of the cerebrum. The results of the participants were not necessarily important in the study because it was not to test whether visual learning or audio learning is more efficient. That could add many other factors such as intelligence level, memory level, and preference of audio or visual learning. But we just wanted to show you how the functions of the different lobes are performed each day.
Here's the object list. Thank you so much.